Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Today I thought I would set a seashell. I haven't done that in a long time, and I was going to do one I've not done before. It's kind of like a little mini conch. Someone who's a seashell expert maybe in the comments can tell me what kind it is. But I'm going to do a little kind of prong setting to hold it in place. I made a little special bail for it. It should be a good project. So let's get started. And so this is one of my design idea sketchbooks. This particular one has a conversion chart on the back that I find pretty useful. It has fractions of an inch to decimals to millimeters. They also, inside of them, have pages that have a dot matrix in the background, which helps me to draw better pictures. So whenever I sketch up my projects, which I always do anymore, it leaves me with a nice record of what I've done, so I can go back and revisit what I've made in the past, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel. So super useful, lots of different kinds here with different information about metalsmithing on them. So get yourself one, maybe two. This is what I had in mind today. The shell that I picked out is this one here. It looks like just like a conch shell that I saw when I was in the Bahamas when I was younger, except it's much smaller. So maybe it's a baby conch, or maybe it's just some other species of something. If you're a shell person, let me know in the comments, because I just don't know what it is. But I'm going to do something that I do with a lot of non-standard kind of objects that you set, and that's to create kind of a framework with the prongs on it to hold the thing in place, and we can attach a bail to it. I've already actually made the bail. I decided to make a little, what I call a sandwich bail. If you're interested in how to do those kind of bails, I'll put a link right up here for you. They're basically just two layers with a bar at the top, a bar at the bottom. Sometimes I put a barrier in the middle for the chain and where it hooks onto the loop. Sometimes I put a barrier in there. This one I didn't. But this one on the top disc, I domed it a little bit, and I, using just a ball burr, I engraved what you usually see on sand dollars when you find them on the beach. So I thought that would go with the shell. So what we'll be using for materials, I made that out of 22 gauge sheet, which is 0.66 millimeters. The base of the framework that we're going to make for this shell is going to be out of 14 gauge square. It's a little bit drawn too thick here probably. And then the prongs are going to be 16 gauge square. So 1.3 millimeters for the 16, 1.6 for the 14. And probably a little just ring made out of 14 gauge round sterling here, which is also 1.6. So, and that's going to be a pretty simple project. I would categorize this one as relatively beginner, maybe a little bit into intermediate, just because it's got some prongs that we're making. So it helps if you have a soft surface to vertically poke the prongs in when we're soldering them to the framework. But our first step is going to be to make that framework. And if you notice, this shell has kind of a flattish area right through here, but it sticks up off of the back on the bottom here, and I decided to just make the framework right through that portion, and then have this other part just floating free there, because I don't think that's going to be a problem. So let's cut a piece of square wire, and then we'll get to work on this. Then we'll make some prongs and poke them in. This is not going to take a huge amount of time, I don't think. So let's go 1, 2, 3. I want to make sure I have plenty, but I don't want to waste stuff either, so I'm trying to make a decent estimate here. So I think I'm going to start. Let's file the end for that. One thing about bending square wire, it always tries to twist on you when you bend it. And so I'm also going to do something else here. This is so I don't change where I'm positioning it along the way. I'm going to make a little mark right on the end here. And then let's make a mark, oh, I don't know, right about there. Oops, hey, come back here. So right about there. We'll use that as our starting point. Right about there is where it really starts to curve sharply. Right about here it jags up a little bit. Now I kind of want it to be kind of a little sharper bend here, so I may just right about here file a little notch in there so that I can bend it a little more sharply. I just demonstrated this on a video earlier this week because I do it all the time. So I'm just going to file a little bit of a notch here. That'll allow us to bend it a little more sharply right there. So we can get a little closer to that shape, you know. And when we go to finish this off and solder the two ends together, we will also solder that point closed so it doesn't, it's a permanent bend. I'm trying to correct for that little twist that shows up here as we go. We're looking pretty good here. That's just about as good as I'm going to get probably, so let's make a mark right there. Cut it off pretty close to that. Maybe give that a little file. Along with my knuckle there. If you're new to my channel and don't know what kind of torch I use and solder and things like that, I'll put some information up there for you. For now, let's go ahead and solder this together. Did I turn my torch on before I got ready? No. No, I did. Okay, so the two ends come together here, and I also have that notch that I need to resolder together there. So I'm going to be pick soldering, which I have a video about up here if you want to see that. It's one of the more useful skills I've learned as a metalsmith. It opens up a lot of things that you can't do if you don't know how to pick solder. And that does not mean you have to use pick soldering for this, but you could just lay a piece across here and lay a piece across here and solder it that way. I find it easier just to pick it up and put it where it needs to go. So, whatever works best for you. You could even use paste solder if you wanted to, I suppose. This method of making a setting for something that's shaped strangely, I use it a lot for raw rocks that people bring me on occasion to set. I have a couple of friends who go walking out on the plains all the time and they find pretty rocks, and sometimes want me to make a pendant for them. So this is a great way to do something that doesn't have a regular shape. I've done sea glass this way. That's a good way to do that. If you were doing some pieces of broken china or something, I've seen people set stuff like that, and that would work really well with this this sort of method. All right, let's try to make sure this is flattish. That's not bad. I think that's how I have it. Or do I have it like this? No, I definitely had it like that. So I've already kind of decided where to put the prongs, and depending upon what you're setting, you may want to put them in different spots, but you want them to hold it from slipping upwards, downwards, or sideways. And so if you can find some parts of the contour of the shell where it will nicely fold in there, that'll be ideal. But I have some little, well, I did have some 16 gauge square. Here it is. I'm going to make the prongs out of that stuff. So let's make a mark where I've made a spot for each prong. Okay, these don't need to be super long. And what I'm going to do, this is the soft surface I was talking about at the beginning. It's called a magnesia block. And sometimes you get a nice way to poke prongs into something so that they stay upright when you solder them on. Alright, so those should all be touching. We'll flux that, and then I'm going to pick a little bit of solder on each one. So. So when you're soldering something like this, the piece laying down is hardest to get up to temperature because the prongs sticking upwards are pretty exposed to the heat. So I kind of avoid the prongs and heat the bottom part as much as I can. If you have a Cool Tools kiln block, those also work for this kind of stuff. They're not as crumbly, but they're a little bit bouncy because they're more fibrous. So you push something in, it springs back just a little bit. So that'll be fitting right in there like that. And we'll cut these off to whatever length seems appropriate when we go to set it. But we need to attach a little ring up here for the bail to go through. Now let me show you the bail too. It's a crudely carved sort of sand dollar, but it's going to have to do. So I need a ring that'll fit around this thing here. So I can make a little ring. This will date me. 1 ringy dingy, 2 ringy dingy, 3 ringy dingy. If you know what that's from, you're probably as old as me. I should have said it in a nasal voice, though. 1 ringy dingy, 2 ringy dingy. My Lily Tomlin impression leaves much to be desired. So I'm actually going to solder this not where the solder joint comes together, because I'm going to leave it open so I can slip this bail on afterwards and then use some easy solder or something to close it up. And so I'm going to put it off to the side like that. So the actual the cut in the ring here is right there, so we'll be able to slide that over and then solder it closed with some other solder. So let's get this soldered on. I don't honestly remember if that was from the Carol Burnett show. I think it was the Carol Burnett show. But it could have been Laugh-In, or it could have been like Sonny and Cher, or one of those other variety shows. Or maybe she did it across. That was just a character she played. So. Alright, so now we should be able to just open this up here. We could have used medium too. It'll work just fine. Okay, we'll take a peek at that. It should hang kind of like that. I think that'll be pretty. So let's let that pickle for a while. I'm going to go rest my neck. I'll probably cut these off before I throw it in the pickle. And then I'll file those up a little bit too, but we'll let that clean up. If when I'm polishing, if I polish away my design here, I'll just cut it in again with a burr. All right, see you in a few. Okay, so I've cut these down a little bit. I'll wash this off after I'm done again. But I will also use a a blue fine polishing wheel, silicone polishing wheel, to clean up these prongs. I narrowed them down a little bit with a white one and cut them to about the length I thought they needed to be. And so now I'm just going to kind of try and gently push them down. And try not to put too much pressure on the shell itself. Well, that feels pretty solid, so I will get that cleaned up and get some better pictures of it. But that's kind of what I had in mind. I did go ahead and carve those in a little bit deeper because the polishing removed a lot of it. So, but hopefully that looks a little bit like a sand dollar. Tell me what you think. Tell me how you might have done things differently. I always love to hear people's techniques. And tell me what kind of shell this is if you know, because I'm curious now. So it's very pretty actually. All right, I'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. All right, well that was a seashell with a sand dollar bail. I hope you enjoyed that one. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go, and I'd love it if you'd visit my main channel page and watch some of my other content. I have over 600 videos now. I've been doing this for about 4 years at 3 per week, so there's quite a collection of stuff there. I think you're almost certain to find something useful or valuable over there, so I'd love it if you'd watch some. Please also subscribe to my channel. It doesn't cost you anything. It makes it easier to find my videos, and you can even push the bell button to get notifications on when my videos come out. I'd like to thank some groups of people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters. They're kind of my bread and butter as far as financially, and I really appreciate that. I couldn't do it without your support, and I also couldn't do it without your moral support. You're a great group of people that I've come to respect and appreciate, and I feel privileged that I get to know you. So thank you for joining my little community over there. The other group are my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 27,700, I believe, which is awesome. Thank you for that. I really love the comment section in my YouTube channel because I get the nicest comments from people. I really appreciate hearing your story, or the way you do things is always fun because I learn new things from you. And I appreciate video suggestions and constructive criticism. That all helps to make my channel a better place. So thanks for that. Thank you also for the financial contributions. Buying me a coffee, super thanks. Buying some of my merch or my ebooks, all of that stuff makes my channel sustainable. I couldn't do it without you, so thanks for that. Also, don't forget to visit the video description down below. There's some important links there. There's a link to my Patreon if you want to find out more about that community. There's a link to my merch store where you can get those nice design idea sketchbooks, which I find pretty valuable. And there's a link to my newest ebook, which is 2025's Tutorial Guide. It has links to over 170 tutorials from last year, On each page, you'll find the sketch that I drew prior to doing the project, a final outcome picture, a list of the materials it takes to make the project, including some information about the stone, if there's a stone in it, a difficulty rating, and finally some notes I made about the project. Things like, would I do it differently if I was to do it again? What did I learn from the project? Did I like the outcome? Lots of information there, a ton of projects for you to pick from, and a great way to support my channel. So thanks in advance if you do that. You can even get a multi-pack and get all 3 years that I've done that for a discount. So check that out. All right, well, thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.